What's happening, Bills Mafia? Ryan Thomas back on the Thomas Take Sports podcast. I got a guest. I'm joined to my right, Justus General of the Built in Buffalo Network. What's going on, Justus?
Oh man, it's a pleasure to be here, bro. I really appreciate you having me on.
Of
Like I said,
course.
obviously, I watched you, on YouTube a few years ago, and it was something that I wanted to do. So, it's pretty cool to be on the show with a guy who, I used to watch and everything. So, thank you for having me, bro.
That's Of course, man. I kicked it to you quick because obviously we got a lot to discuss, but I wanted to say thank you for hopping on. When we connected on social media and you kind of told me, hey, you were one of the guys I started watching on YouTube, I was like, that's really cool. That made my day when you told me that. So I wanted you to kind of tell that to the audience, because I think a lot of the fans out there that tune into all the podcasts and, content creator stuff, they feel like there's competition. And of course it's healthy competition, but I think it's cool to say, hey, I watched this guy. He was a Buffalo Bills content creator, I kind of dipped my toes in those waters, and look at you now. You're hosting some shows on an awesome network, and you're doing a hell of a job. So props to you for that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that. And I mean, of course, it's a little healthy competition, but for me, ultimately, I just like to talk football with people who know football, and really good people. And from what I've known about you, I've spoken with you, excuse me, a couple of times, and you seem like a really great guy.
I
So
appreciate that.
absolutely, this is my pleasure, man.
I appreciate that a lot, man. I really do. I appreciate your support. And of course, I've tuned into your stuff, along the way, and to kind of tune into your stuff and then have you, not knowing that you were always tuning into my stuff is really cool. I think that's a really cool story. So I wanted to tell that for the viewers and listeners out there. Justus, listen, man, I was on your show last week. It was the first round bye show, and we had an awesome panel. Everybody that was on the show, Akeem, I've had on the show before, and some of the other guys I haven't talked to on a show or in general, and they were all fantastic. So I want to start off the show by thanking you for having me on your show, and I had to return the favor. We were talking about getting you on prior to that week, but then I ended up being on your show first, and now you're back on mine. So we're doing a double dip, as I like to call it in the podcast circles. I go on your show, you come on my show. Greatly appreciate it. So along the way of that show, we talked about the AFC playoff. Obviously, the Buffalo Bills last week had a game for the ages. I think I can attest to this, and I think you can as well. Those in our generation, we experienced something on Saturday night that we doubted it was possible for a long, long time. We were forced to doubt whether that was possible, whether the Bills could hand the Patriots not just an epic beatdown, but a beatdown that, to me, cemented the AFC East as ours for years to come. I wanted to recap the Buffalo Bills versus New England Patriots game. Of course, throughout the show tonight, we're going to take some questions from the viewers. You guys comment whether you're tuning in on the Thomas Take YouTube channel or Facebook or my personal Facebook, Ryan Thomas. Of course, fire away those comments. I'll get to them as much as I can throughout the show as I pepper Justus with some questions, a little bit of a recap, and some Buffalo Bills trivia that I've added to the show. I'm going to see if Justus can keep up here with the trivia of the Buffalo Bills. I'm sure he can. I got one question for him that I found pretty interesting. It's a link to this matchup between the Bills and Chiefs as we moved on. But Justus, what were your thoughts? What were your thoughts on this epic blowout? Recap it for me. What was your thought process during the game? And how are you feeling now after this game is all said and done?
Yeah, man. It was really interesting because the week leading up to the game, right? All of ESPN and everybody, Fox Sports, anybody who has like a national media platform, right? They're all saying, "Well, this is Bill Belichick's defense, and he's gonna find a way," and all this other stuff. And it's just like, people really they kept referencing, the week, what was it, 13, I believe, matchup where, obviously they got 45-mile-per-hour winds, and I call it a fluke, but you can't, call it a fluke because we split games, I guess. But I was really just to see it happen like live. I was losing my mind. Like everybody in my apartment complex hates me. I'm sure of it. But like, it was really cool to see. Josh Allen absolutely went crazy. And then what's even better is Devin Singletary went crazy. The defense went crazy. Dawson Knox, Emmanuel Sanders, Gabe Davis, everybody was in on it. And it was just like I can't like sometimes after a game I'll have like the up, who's down, type of discussion or whatever, who's on fire, who's cold. And I couldn't think of anybody who's down. I guess you could say Tyler Bass, but I'm not worried about that at all. Tyler Bass has been automatic when the conditions haven't been absolute, the worst they could possibly be. He was 51 of 51 for extra points this season, and he was pretty good from field goal percentage. He made almost everything except for when the wind was like coming at him 50 miles per hour, right? So it was just really cool to see all of it. It was really cool to have it be in the playoffs as well because I know you saw what we did in New England last year, and people just brush it off like it didn't happen. Like Josh Allen owns the Patriots now, so for it to have happened in the playoffs, I think it give it more weight, and I think people will hopefully begin to respect Josh Allen in the AFC East, if nothing else.
What would you say? I mean, you touched on the fact that this was a complete team victory. Like the defense was involved, the offense was heavily involved. I mean, 7 drives, 7 touchdowns, no punts, no field goals, a perfect game. It was the equivalent of a no-hitter from an offense perspective, if we're to use a baseball analogy. But you mentioned that it was a complete team win. But if there was one play that jumped out at you that you just can't stop thinking about that blew your mind. There were a lot of them, and the fact that we have a lot of them to choose from just goes to show you how crazy of a game that it actually was. But what play jumps out at you as like the play of that game?
Listen, man, it's like a blur. It was just all goodness. It was, you know what I mean? Like the entire game was just like one scream after the other, and it came so rapidly. It was like the Chiefs game, just like the Russo pick. It was just like, I'm losing my mind, right? If I had to pick one play, I guess I would say it's the Micah Hyde interception because I literally had no clue that was coming, right? It's 7-0, and Mac Jones makes a pretty good pass. I'm not gonna lie, it was a pretty good throw, right? It was accurate. It was on the money.
Definitely.
Micah Hyde literally came out of nowhere and made a spectacular play. And I say that play because I think the game is different if it's 7-7 there versus 31-3, obviously. So that play right there really set the tone for the entire game. Did you have a favorite play?
Yeah, and I would 100% agree. Ken Zintel, he's a longtime viewer, longtime listener of the show, longtime chime in listener and viewer. Ken Zintel says, played the best game I've seen in over 20 years, both sides of the ball, fire. And he said the greatest play of the year, Micah Hyde. So he's in agreement with us that play really stood out. I'm sitting there, just to put it in my perspective, I'm sitting there and I'm watching the ball fly through the air, and I see what is the equivalent of like this ant kind of running across the field to cover like 10 to 15 yards. And I'm thinking, there's no way. Oh my God, he just got that ball. He just picked that ball. That was one of the best takeaways I've ever seen, just from a takeaway football perspective, not even just in recent Bills history, but just from a pure, defensive take. That was a true takeaway. That wasn't an interception where the quarterback looked at the receiver too long and threw it to the DB. Micah Hyde covered, 10, 15 yards to meet the ball and to put it back in our hands. It was one of the greatest plays I've ever seen. Now, from what you touched on too within the game, you touched on something that a comment here is coming in that actually is in full agreement with you, that simply put, Allen figured out Belichick's defense. What have you seen from Allen, Josh Allen? It seems as if Allen, these last few weeks, since the Tampa Bay Buccaneers game, since the second half began of that game, I've noticed a completely different version of the quarterback that has always shown signs of upside. But this looks like a quarterback now that is just in the zone. If you were to use a Madden reference, he'd have that fire X underneath his feet. He's just making every single throw. He's putting the ball where it needs to be. What are your thoughts on Josh Allen's play just these last few weeks?
I don't think Josh Allen has been any more spectacular than he typically is. I'm just being honest with you. As you probably know, like people say it all the time. Like I watch every game 2-3 times each, right? And so Josh Allen does
Right.
Spectacular things
As
on a
do
regular
I.
basis. Yeah, exactly. So you can probably attest to this. He does spectacular things on a regular basis. A lot of times, maybe the scheme isn't where it should be. Like Brian Daboll isn't necessarily calling a great game. There's no motion. They're not executing at the highest potential of their spread offense, right? I believe that you're most efficient, most effective in the game when Isaiah McKenzie is running around pre-snap. To be honest with you, I mean, Isaiah McKenzie seems like he should be a staple in his offense at this point. Not only that, but you got Devin Singletary, absolutely showing out, these last couple of weeks, which I think greatly attributes to Josh Allen's ability to kind of not even be it's not a one-man show anymore. Let me put it that way. Now he's the front man, but then he can step off stage, take a deep breath, and change clothes into a different outfit while someone else entertains the crowd, right? So he's kind of got a cast with him now that is more effective than what it usually is, or what it was, for the majority of the season. And again, I think that's a credit to Brian Daboll, because I don't know what Brian Daboll was on for the entire season. I know his grandparents died, and I try to be sympathetic to that. But he's showing up recently. He's showing up these last few weeks, and I think we hit our stride at the perfect time. If he calls half as good of a game versus the Chiefs as he did at New England, then we win that game, and we're headed to the AFC Championship.
Perfect segue in the radio biz or podcast biz. That's what we refer to as a segue. When you end the question that I gave you with a different question that I can throw back to you. Just playing volleyball, right. Just playing ping pong here on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. So I have a huge question in regards to the success that this team has had, because listen, they have an offensive coordinator that has been in the running for a head coaching position the last couple years, mainly last year and this year, I'd say. They also have a defensive coordinator that Leslie Frazier has tuned up this defense in terms of turning the volume up to 100. Without Trey White, what the secondary has done is phenomenal. I never thought I'd sit here and say that I wouldn't really necessarily. I'm not saying I don't miss Trey White. Let me preface but I don't really notice as much that he's not out there as I thought I would, because Levi Wallace and Dane Jackson, as well as Poyer and Hyde, have just been phenomenal together. And a guy that you appreciate and a guy that I appreciate, Teron Johnson. Leslie Frazier's done a phenomenal job, and we've seen this front four as well, especially in the Patriots game, create pressure the young, rookie quarterback Mac Jones, who looked like in parts of this game last Saturday, he had no idea what to do, where to put the ball, very hesitant out there. My question is, with the success of Daboll on the offensive side of the ball, and with the success of Frazier leading the number one defense virtually all season in terms of the NFL rankings, who will get a head coaching job first? Do you think it'll be Daboll, or do you think it'll be Leslie Frazier?
First of all, I just want to apologize for my mic. I didn't know my mic was off, so I was speaking through my headphones, so my audio is probably really bad. But to answer your question, here's the thing. Leslie Frazier absolutely deserves a head coach more than, I don't know, probably any assistant in the NFL. If I'm being honest with you, the Bills defense has been great for 5 years, and the one time that they haven't been great was for the first 65% of last season, which we were riddled with injuries. And then we came on as one of the better defenses in the back half of the season. And then obviously we were one of the best defenses in the playoffs. So he absolutely deserves a head coaching job. However, my man Jake Jordan in the comment section, he just said it. Daboll will probably get one first. And if I'm being honest, I probably want Daboll to get one first. I believe our offense is going to be successful regardless of who's our offensive coordinator. From being quite honest, Josh Allen is he's a megastar. Like, it doesn't matter who comes in and coaches him at this point. As long as you have a halfway decent game plan, Josh Allen can make it work, So We have the talent. Brandon Beane's going to go ahead and continue to put the talent on the field that best represents the Buffalo Bills. And Josh Allen's going to find a way to make it work no matter, and I mean, Sean McDermott's not just going to hire a moron, right? So I would like to see Daboll get one first, but I would say Frazier absolutely deserves one most of all.
I'm right there with you. I think realistically in the NFL, I think Dable will be on more lists just because of 2 straight years of production, and they'll, as you kind of alluded to, they will kind of throw in the fact that Dable developed Allen, which I'm not going to say he didn't, but I'm not necessarily going to give him all the credit. I'm not going to necessarily give him all the credit for the success that Allen has had, because even going back to 2018 when he was drafted, you knew that the potential was there. The sky was the limit. It was just a matter of cultivating that talent. And Josh Allen actually seeking out his own development off the field in the off season, on practice fields with guys like Jordan Palmer, working with Ken Dorsey more closely as a quarterback's coach, I think, in terms of his mechanics and stuff like that. But Leslie Frazier, I mean, he was a 3-year head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. 3 years is a blink of an eye in the NFL. Let's be honest. Some of these coaches are getting fired after 3 years, 1 year. And I think that the NFL, and I've talked about this with a lot of people, and it's a different topic, but I think that the NFL needs to give just as fair an opportunity to African-American coaches as they do white or Caucasian head coaches. I'm sitting here saying that, noticing a trend that I think a lot of people are noticing. Brian Flores gets fired. David Culley gets fired after 1 season in a no-win situation. And I can sit here and say there are coaches that simply just didn't deserve the opportunity or didn't have enough of a base or pedigree like a Leslie Frazier that got head coaching jobs like Joe Judge and some of these other coaches that we've seen get canned after 2 years. So I think Leslie Frazier has been in the league long enough. He's been an assistant long enough. He's had a head coaching opportunity that was a cup of coffee. I think realistically he deserves a long-term shot as a head coach in this league, whereas Dable, if he does get an opportunity, I think it's going to be much tougher for Brian Dable to leave this Buffalo Bills team and pick up where he left off with a new offense than it will be for Frazier. Call me crazy, but leaving this offense is a true risk if you're an offensive coordinator. Leaving the Allens and the Diggs for what? Justin Fields, Tua, some of these jobs that are available are not exactly the best offenses in comparison to Buffalo. They're at the bottom of the barrel for a reason. They're looking for a head coach for a reason. So I hope to see Leslie Frazier get the opportunity. Frankly, I hope both get the opportunity because I do feel they've both done enough to deserve it. It's just that, simply put, we have to have equal opportunity for everybody. I think we could all agree on that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that was very well said. And I totally agree with your point about Brian Daboll. It's going to be hard for him to go somewhere and even replicate half of what he's doing right now, because if you go somewhere, that means they don't have a head coach, which means they're probably not a great team. The start of not being a great team typically is you don't have a great offense, right? So if you have a great offense, you usually don't get fired. If you have a great defense, you can still get fired because you didn't win enough games, right? I think Leslie Frazier would have the ability to go somewhere, have head coaching experience. And I mean, if you look at his scheme, you can't necessarily name 3 superstars on the Buffalo Bills roster, right? On the Buffalo Bills defense, right? Superstars in terms of these guys are bona fide national, consensus all-pro superstars, right? You could name Jordan Poyer and Michael Hyde, of course. They are the best safety tandem in the NFL, but they're slept on, right? Tre'Davious White, he may get that recognition, but outside of him, nobody else really does. Leslie Frazier has put, I always say this, Leslie Frazier puts defenders in the position that they need to be in to make a play on defense. Whether or not you're good enough is up to you, but he's going to put you in the position to make the play. So I think that he'll be able to do that with any defense he goes to. I said Brian Flores. I meant Brian Daboll. Brian Daboll, if you remember, our first 2 years of offense weren't good with him. when Josh was a rookie in Josh's second year.
Right.
Granted, he had nothing to work with, but going to a new team, chances are you don't have very much to work with. So you have 32nd ranked offense in Josh's rookie year, Dayball's first year as OC, and then I believe it was like ranked 29th or 30th his second year, right? Obviously, you broke out in his third year when you got Stephon Diggs and you got Gabe Davis and you got Josh Allen, and has matured. So yeah, we know you can make magic with an ultra world all universe quarterback and an all world wide receiver. Great, but let's see if you could make magic with Justin Fields and whoever the hell he's throwing to. You know what I mean? Right. It'd be tougher for him. I think that Leslie Frazier might have an easier road. I will, however, say that Brian Daboll does have a higher ceiling than Leslie Frazier in terms of probably winning as an NFL head coach. I will say that.
Yeah, I think that, and of course it depends on where he goes, but even depending on where he goes, the NFL game today, as you know it and as I know it, is catered to the offense. Let's be real here. Some of these numbers that Drew Brees was able to accrue, and Tom Brady, I mean, he's almost 50 for Christ's sake. I mean, he's able to get up to 80,000 yards passing, and people marvel at that, but it's like, okay, let's put it in perspective. Has Tom Brady ever been hit the way Jim Kelly was hit, the way Joe Montana was hit, the way John Elway was hit? No, that's maybe never happened.
2 or 3 times in his career.
Two or three times, maybe, but you don't see defensive ends Bruce Smith suplexing Dan Marino and John Elway over his shoulder. You don't see that anymore. So, perspective, I think, in this sense of the era that we're living in, it's a very pass-heavy offense in virtually every offense. I watched a very interesting documentary about the greatest show on turf with Kurt Warner, Marshall Faulk, Torrey Holt, Isaac Bruce, Orlando Pace, offensive tackle that made it to the Hall of Fame, of course. That offense then is pretty much every offense today. I really believe that in my heart of hearts. You don't see – it's like the first offense you saw that went spread on first down and just threw it all over the field. So that's kind of what the Bills have done, of course, and that's what the Kansas City Chiefs have done as we move forward to previewing this massive AFC East divisional round matchup. And it's crazy. I'm looking at the bracket, and obviously the Bills are the 3 seed, the Chiefs are the 2 seed. The fact that the Tennessee Titans and the Cincinnati Bengals, whoever wins that game, won't have to go through both of these teams. Like, that to me is like, they're got to be looking at that thinking, thank God these teams are playing each other in the divisional round, because these two teams, I think, are easily the 2 best teams in the AFC. Pardon my French, but that 1 seed of the Tennessee Titans is a joke. I won't use any swear words. I'll just say it is a joke. I don't think the Tennessee Titans are worthy of the 1 seed. But I got a question for you. If my statement, if you agree with it, that those are the 2 best teams in the AFC, is this like the AFC Super Bowl between the Bills and Chiefs on Sunday night?
I mean, yeah, this is the consensus AFC championship game, right? Probably the 2 most talented teams in the league, if I'm being honest, Kansas City and Buffalo. Obviously, you would like to see them in the AFC championship game, but bizarro world NFL took over in 2021. So you got a situation where the Chiefs were dead last in their division by week 5 of the NFL season. So I believe they had I think they had like 3 losses at that point, and I think they accumulated 2-3 more throughout the rest of the season. Nope, it was 2 more. They had 5 losses because the Bills had 6 losses and we beat them, so we would have been the 2 seed if they had the. But anyway,
right,
they had accumulated those losses early in the season, and I don't think the Tennessee Titans are the best team. And of course, the Bills lost some games they shouldn't have, and if they don't lose those games, they might be 1 or 2 seed. But you got a couple of situations where something super bizarre happens and the Bengals beat the Chiefs or the Jaguars beat the Bills, and the Titans were able to capitalize off of it a little bit, and I mean, they had a cakewalk, but to be fair, so did we, and we lost to one of those cakewalk teams, so I can't be mad at it. You know what I mean? And they did what they had to do. They didn't look great doing it, but they did it, and they get the way easier schedule. chance to the AFC Championship game now. You don't even have to play the first week, and then the second week you're blessed with the Bengals. Like, not that the Bengals are bad, but they're not the Chiefs or the Bills, right? And I don't even think the Titans will win that game, if I'm being honest with you. So,
I don't either. I don't either. We'll talk about that for sure. I don't either, and I'll dive into that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So, they definitely got lucky. This is the game that everybody wants to see in the AFC Championship game. However, the Bills nor the Chiefs did what they were supposed to do during the regular season. So this is what we have to, deal with. And, what the greatest show on turf never did, what Patrick Mahomes has never, what Brady, Rodgers, Mahomes, none of them have ever did. They have never played a perfect offensive football game, which Josh Allen has done. So, I mean, I think that this game with the Chiefs favors the Bills heavily, if I'm being honest. The same thing with the Patriots, right? Like, I'm thinking, like, I want to be cautious because I don't want to sound too cocky, because then you get doors blown open and then you feel stupid, right? But the Chiefs defense is not nearly as good as the Bills defense, right? And then we have, you could say, quarterbacks, if Josh is not 1, he's 1A, right? So you have equal quarterbacks, both are top 5 offenses, and then one other team has the number 1 defense in the NFL, right? So it's, I think it heavily favors the Bills, if I'm being honest. And we beat them earlier. So
Right. I remember, you asked me a question. You asked everybody the question: who's the team that you feared? Who was the player that you feared? And I feared Jonathan Taylor. And lo and behold, the Colts didn't even make the playoffs. And then the fact that I kind of dove into the Chiefs a little bit, in the sense that this is not your Kansas City Chiefs team that you at least fear going into a matchup as much as you did 2 years ago or last year. I mean, this Chiefs team got off to a very slow start, whereas the Bills got off to a hot start. And along the way, the chips fell where they may, and the Chiefs ended up second in the AFC, and we finished third. But truthfully, to your point, you're looking at this matchup almost like it's a heavyweight title fight. Yeah, the Chiefs might have a stinging jab that will keep you at bay for a few rounds, but as the rounds kind of wear on and the Bills are still just hanging in there, taking punches, lo and behold, by the 9th, 10th round, they're landing the shots. That's the type of team that I think the Bills have, in terms of maybe it might not go well right out of the gate, but we'll find a way. I feel like this is a team. It sounds corny, it sounds cheesy, but this seems like a team of destiny. They have a lot of animosity towards what happened last season with the Chiefs. And let us not forget, I'll throw this out there, hot take, but the Chiefs won that game fair and square. But in the process of winning that game fair and square, I will throw out there, they were a dirty team. There was a lot of things that happened in that game that the refs didn't even bat an eyelash at. That Agreed. You go back, I got it on my DVR, I've watched it. I'm thinking, if the shoe was on the other foot, I wonder how that would have went.
There have been 27 penalties for the Bills if it was on the other foot.
Right. So this game has all the makings of a really great classic football game. Of course, I don't view the Chiefs as a fearsome team as much as I used to. I think Mahomes is still the player that you fear, but outside of that, if Mahomes is less than stellar, then everyone else is less than stellar. Like, the key to this game, without a
Oh, is that you, Ryan? Did you freeze?
Yeah, freeze. I saw that there.
Oh, okay. I was confused.
Yeah, I think this game is easily theirs if they're able to pressure Pat Mahomes. Is there a player on this Chiefs team, though, outside of Pat Mahomes that you fear?
Yeah, Tyreek Hill. And obviously Travis Kelce is really good, right? Mm-hmm. But Tyreek Hill brings an element that is just like, how do you stop that sometimes? You know what I mean? It's just like that speed. I've watched him, like somebody chasing him from an angle, and him run up to catch that person and then run out past them and, run for 30 extra yards. It's like, it is demoralizing speed. And I know he hurt his Achilles or his ankle or something. He had a lower extremity injury, And I mean, I'll never wish injury on anybody, but you know, I would, you know what I mean?
Wouldn't hurt us if he was hurt.
Yeah, exactly. If it made him a little bit slower, if it made him like a 4.5 instead of a 4.2, then great. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I would say Tyreek Hill definitely has that speed that is a little, you know, it makes you it definitely, like, you know, makes your heart sink a little bit. It's like a roller coaster ride. Like I remember last year, the one play in the AFC Championship game, and he just takes a juke right. Levi Wallace goes that way, and he's like 80 yards, and I was just like, oh my god, like that is so. And not only that, but the Bills are prone to those plays, like what happened in Washington. You know, I believe it was
McLaurin.
Nope, it was the running back. It just
Gibson.
Think of his name. Gibson ran it like 74 yards or something crazy. There was the play against Tennessee, obviously. Derrick Henry. I mean, there was a ton of holding on that play, but whatever. And then, you know, the play against New England, you know, when Stevenson, you know, took. So we're prone to the big, huge play out of nowhere. But I think we'll be more ready for it this time, especially seeing them in the AFC Championship game last week, and then absolutely handing them their own tail when we played them earlier in the season, because the game ended 38-20. But I'm gonna be honest with you, ladies and gentlemen, it was a bigger blowout than that. It was not that close. The refs bailed them out a ton in that game, and the Bills still handled them easily. So,
yeah, I would agree with that, and I would agree with the fact that if I were to say, you know, I fear Mahomes the most because the offense obviously runs through him. It's got to go from his hand to Hill's hands, right? But I also realize my statement of, oh, you have to pressure Pat Mahomes. Every team has tried, and it's very difficult to maintain that pressure. Not even to maintain the pressure, but you can pressure Pat Mahomes as much as you want. He's the antithesis of a guy that can improv on the move. I mean, he's the guy. Josh Allen as well, but Pat Mahomes has been doing it since day one. So I feel like, you know, I fear Mahomes, but to your point, I do fear Hill more than Kelsey. And obviously, without Trey White in this game, that could be a real factor that could hurt or help the Bills, depending on how they approach it. It hasn't really hurt them as much as I thought it would yet, but they haven't gone up against a guy, to your point, that runs what, a 4.28 40. You have another guy on the side of the field, Mecole Hardman. He ran at one point, I believe it was a 4.3 40. Yeah,
no, he might run a 4.22. He's 4.22.
I thought it was 4.23. Yeah, at one point.
No. I'm sorry, not a 4.22, but like a 4.2 also.
4.2 also. Gotcha. Yeah. So either way, they're fast as lightning. They're very quick. They can cut, they can juke, they can make you look really, really silly out there. And then you have a tight end that has been one of the best. So for me, watching that Bills game was fantastic. Knowing that, we got that monkey off our back that is Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots. But then on the flip side of things, I watched the Chiefs play the Pittsburgh Steelers and just shellacked them the way that they did. And it kind of brought me back down to reality a bit that, hey, we took care of business against the Patriots, but this team is still there as well. This team is the next monkey off our back that we have to get and just throw to the ground or throw into the, I don't know, just get it off our back. We did it once before in the regular season. Now we got to do it again. And I think I'm interested to see what your thoughts are on this next talking point. What would you say would be like your biggest key to victory for the Buffalo Bills in this game with the Chiefs? How do you see this as a keys to victory standpoint?
Excuse me. Biggest key to victory is score early and score often. That's it. That's the only one. If you score early and score often, you'll win this game. Again, the Bills secondary is just nuts. It's absolutely insane. They don't let anybody over the top of them. It's not going to happen. I don't care if you're Tyreek Hill or Mecole Hardman, Travis Kelce, doesn't matter. They're not going to let anybody over the top of them. The one time they thought they let somebody over the top of him, Micah Hyde came from nowhere, snatched the ball out of the guy's hands in the end zone, right? So again, if you look at what happened last week in the wild card round, the Chiefs didn't score in the first quarter, right? If you do that with the Bills, you're going to be in trouble, because if the Bills play, I mean, obviously, if they play how they played last week, it's over. I don't care who you're playing, but to the ability to do that, to go 7 straight drives and touchdowns, that is nuts. So if the Bills can get out and even do like a situation where they score 2 touchdowns on the first 2 drives, it automatically puts the target on your back. If you're, Patrick Mahomes, if you're Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs, now you have to let the air raid out. Now, as much as that might play to your advantage, it also plays to our advantage, because as strong as your, passing ability is, as strong as your, like I said, passing just core is as a passing unit, we have the best secondary in the league. Our secondary is the very reason that we are the number 1 defense in the league. Everybody said the Super Bowl aspirations were over after New Orleans. And although I was pretty scared, I'm not going to lie, because obviously after New Orleans, because that was Trey White's injury, I was pretty scared. But I was thinking to myself, look, we have the number 1 defense. Without Trey White, we are probably like at least number 10, right? But what they did was even better. They went ahead and they continued to show that they were the number 1 defense in the NFL, and they shut people down. They got hit a little bit in the first half of the Bucs game, although running had a lot to do with that. But they shut Tom Brady down in the second half. No Trey White, Mike Evans, Antonio Brown. I think they still had Chris Godwin at that point. I don't think Rob Gronkowski played, but still, they shut Tom Brady down. Right. So, I know Patrick Mahomes, as you mentioned, he has this ability to scramble around and behind the pocket and kind of make guys miss. And is I'm not gonna lie, it's fascinating to watch.
It is very entertaining. I don't take anything away from him. He's a great player.
Absolutely. He's a phenomenal player. I just, Josh can do the same thing. And then Josh can do it where he kind of makes everybody else look like children. He's throwing defensive tackles off of his ankles and stiff arming linebackers, throwing touchdown passes with linebackers on his back. Like, this is nuts. Like, who's doing this stuff? You know what I mean? So if Josh, we don't even need Josh to be Superman. If Devin Singletary can give you 5 yards of pop again, if Devin Singletary can give you another 86 yards rushing with, I don't know, a touchdown or 2, if they can depend on Devin Singletary and that offensive line to continue to let that run game flourish, it's over. If Josh can get a rhythm, it's over. Like, if this offense gets going and they get to scoring, it's over, because Kansas City is not going to be able to keep up with us in points, because they would literally have to run down the field in order to do that. And I don't even think our run defense is that weak anymore. They're not passing their way down to our defense. So it's just not happening.
Yeah, I think the matchup of this game is Buffalo's defense versus Kansas City's offense, because Buffalo's offense versus Kansas City's defense, I think, is
a mismatch.
Is a huge mismatch. And in terms of what we've noticed, and you've touched on it with Devin Singletary has always had the talent. I have went toe-to-toe with people on Facebook and Twitter about Devin Singletary since he got here, essentially, where they're saying he's too small, he's not fast, he's not elusive enough, there's nothing in his game that makes a team game plan. I say, listen to this take here. The Buffalo Bills offensive line is one of the better pass blocking offensive lines, but in terms of its run blocking, it was one of the worst for quite a long time with Devin Singletary on board. They finally figured this out, though, with these late round guys, or a Ryan Bates who was undrafted, bounced around, and putting those guys on the line. Correct me if I'm wrong, but it's completely changed the run game. The run game has looked like a completely different team these last 4 or 5 weeks with those 2 guys out there. I can't put a finger on what exactly it is. I can only guess that the size that those guys have, the physicality that those guys have, just from what my eyes tell me watching the game, is what is creating these holes. But I'm also seeing Devin Singletary be a much more patient running back and show vision and create his own holes to run through. We saw it on a play where he did that jump cut. The Mitch Morse wasn't quite there yet to pull from the center position and be that lead blocker for Singletary. Singletary did that jump cut, created a little bit of extra space for himself, and burst through the hole that he then created off of that jump cut. So just a complete and total fantastic improvement within the run game from all those things, whether it's the offensive line or Singletary just being more alert and showing that vision. I love Devin Singletary. I think he's going to be here for a very long time. I don't think he's going anywhere. You could talk about maybe they bring in another running back in the offseason. Whatever. I know one thing is for certain. Devin Singletary is not going anywhere, nor should he. And he is the true RB1 of this team. It took us, 10, 11 weeks to figure out who the best running back was in the roster. But I think he was the best guy all along. And here we are. So I completely agree with you. This game, Buffalo's defense is top notch. If Buffalo can score early and often in this one, I think that this will be a shootout, no doubt about it. I think back and forth it could be a shootout, but we could see what we saw the last matchup, I should say, where slowly but surely Buffalo's offense was just too much for the Kansas City Chiefs to go pitter-patter with, and the Bills could win by a very similar score than what they did in the regular season, 38-20, I believe it was. I could see something similar to that. So, with that being said, I have a trivia question. It is the Buffalo Bills trivia round on the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. You ready for this?
Yes, sir.
All right. So this is a question that I found interesting because it links both teams, the Bills and Chiefs, together. And a lot of old timers will know the answer to this question. I know it because I'm a Buffalo Bills historian freak. I look up this stuff on a daily basis in my downtime. So which former Buffalo Bills head coach was a head coach of the Chiefs prior to coming to Buffalo?
Head coach of the Chiefs. Yeah, that's a good one.
He was the head coach of the Chiefs for a few years.
Okay. Did he come Buffalo Bills head coach? So he was a Buffalo Bills head coach. Okay.
Yep.
That's a tough one. I'm gonna take a guess.
Sure.
I'm gonna go with Wade Phillips.
Unfortunately, you're close because Wade Phillips replaced this man, but it was Marv Levy. Marv Levy was the head coach of the Chiefs in like the mid '80s prior to coming to Buffalo.
I was gonna say Marv Levy, but I was like, that's too obvious. He was our best coach ever. Like,
how about that? How about that? So if the Chiefs didn't fire Marv Levy, who knows what would have happened? You know what I mean? Like, that's a huge, huge variable in the history of the Buffalo Bills as well as the Chiefs, because once the Chiefs fired Marv Levy, they bounced from head coach to head coach, and Buffalo hires Marv Levy from Bill Polian brings in Marv Levy, and the dynasty of the 4 straight Super Bowls, the run began. It all starts with the coach, I think. And for as much as we've talked about the players on this team, I want to get your simple thoughts, and I didn't put a banner on this question because this one's just coming off of the top of my head, but what are your thoughts on the 5 years that it's been in the Sean McDermott era? I think everything with a great team starts and ends with their head coach. He creates that culture. What do you think of McDermott just as a whole, the last 5 years?
Man, it's invaluable. I don't think people quite realize what it's like to not see the playoffs for 17 years, right? I don't even know what it's like because, I was born in 95, right? So by the time in 2000 is when I first became like cognizant of football, right? Like actually knowing what's going on the field, right? And I'm 5 years old. And then we just go on this streak of mediocrity and never make the playoffs. And so I had never seen a successful football team, as I have never been a fan of one, right? It was just every year, maybe this is the year, and then it never happens. It's like, well, I guess not, right? So then Sean McDermott comes in. I'm like, who the hell is Sean McDermott? Like, who is this guy? Like, then Brandon Beane comes in. They're trading Sammy Watkins. They're trading Ronald Darby. I'm like, what is happening? Like, what is going on, right? And I'm ticked. I'm like, yo, now we're about to be trashed for another 3 years and all this other stuff. And then we made the playoffs that year, and I was like, oh, what? Tyrod Taylor is still one of my favorite Bills players ever. LaShawn McCoy obviously probably led us to that playoffs, and obviously great defense. Second year, we get Josh Allen, and I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of ticked we got Josh Allen. I'm like, I didn't want Josh Allen. I'm sitting in the premiere of the Avengers movie that came out that year, and I look at my phone and I see what the Bills trade up to the number 7 pick to go get this guy.
That's right, because the Avengers came out in May and the draft was in May that year. Yeah, that's right. Wow.
And I'm ticked. I'm like, we gave away assets to go get the guy I didn't want, and I was just so angry. And then I saw a preseason game and he juked out one Bengals player, came back, threw the touchdown across the middle. I was like, oh, okay, and I watched the rest of the season, and I'm just like, yo, this kid is the legit. Like, just from his rookie season, I could tell, like, yo, this kid is legit. He's legit. And he just continued to grow from that point on, and it kind of, like, in real time, it's happened. It's all happened in real time, obviously, but like, you kind of don't even realize it. But like, the entire culture of this football team, this city, everything, it just shifted. You know what I mean? Now we expect a winning football team. Like, that's nuts for Buffalo. You know what I mean? Like, to expect a winning football team, to legitimately believe your team has a shot to win a Super Bowl, that's brand new. So everything he's done for this city, just for this area, not even the city, like the whole Western New York region, he's just completely shifted our expectations, our thought process, talk about process. That guy really came in and excuse me. What he should get a key to the city. If I'm being completely honest with you, he should get a key to the city.
I agree with you. Honestly, if I could hug any member of the Buffalo Bills, player, coach, GM, I would give him a nice handshake and a pat on the back. I'd be like, thank you, because I'll tell you my Sean McDermott story. So obviously I knew that they were looking to get a head coach, Rex Ryan. That whole thing kind of blew up in their face. He's out after 2 years. And I'm thinking, okay, the direction you go in now, coming off of that 2-year stretch with Rex Ryan is crucial. You can't miss.
I was actually upset we fired Rex Ryan. I don't mean to cut you off. I'm just saying I was upset.
I thought it was a little too soon. 2 years. I mentioned that earlier. 2 years is nothing. Some coaches get fired after 1 year, and I just think that's unfair. I think the max has got to be 3. Max has got to be 3. But
I agree.
Hey, they fired him, and I'm thinking, okay, they made that decision. They're my team. I have to, move forward to, even though I might not agree with it, I'll move forward to. And I'm thinking, okay, this next decision has to be, it can't just be a false hope hire. It has to be somebody that, really can command respect, because this team has been bad for far too long. This team needs to make the playoffs. And I'm thinking, okay, Frank Reich, that would get the juices flowing for the fans. And he's the right hire at the time, because he did a lot for the Colts. He bounced around to the Chargers, worked with Rivers, worked with Peyton, worked with a lot of good quarterbacks. And I thought, okay, if they need a quarterback, Tyrod's probably going to be out, pretty soon if Rex is gone. Typically that's what happens. Head coach goes, quarterback goes shortly after. And they hired this defensive coordinator from the Carolina Panthers. And I'm thinking, here's another coordinator that might not be ready for a head coaching job. We've done this before. We've been here before. I don't know what to think of this. And then Channel 4 and Channel 2 and Channel 7, 2, 4, and 7 locally have, of course, introductory press conference. And I was just blown away by this guy right out of the gate. I remember calling my dad saying, I don't know what it is, but this is the type of coach that if I was on this team, if I was good enough to actually make it to the NFL, which of course I was not. That's why I'm on here, not playing. But if
Same
I was
here,
on,
man.
it is what it is. If I was on this team, I would want to run through a burning building for this coach. I would want to run through a brick wall for this coach. There's just something about him. And then I found out that he was a wrestler in high school and in college at William and Mary. And I thought, this is the type of guy that I like, because I wrestled for in high school, and I know the mentality that you have to have. It is literally, no matter what happens, you push forward, bite down on your mouthpiece, never give up, will over skill. Sometimes the guy with the most will is the guy that's going to win over skill, and that's just what he is, I think, cemented in this culture, this team. We talked about the defense. There isn't really a bona fide Aaron Donald type name, a Jalen Ramsey, some of these guys, but they're all just simply doing their job and working extremely hard to get the Bills from point A to point B, from being a contender, from being a pretender to a contender to a Super Bowl contender. And that happened in 5 years, 3 years, actually. If you look at, each year they've got incrementally better. They were 6-10, 10-6, 3-13. They won 11-6 this year. But hey, the process, boy, I'm at a job interview. You brought this up too. I'm at a job interview. My phone goes off, and I'm like, I don't want to look at it because I'm in an interview right now. So then I asked, I thought it was like an important text from one of my family members or something like that. And I see that Sammy Watkins was traded. And I just yelled out, what the hell? What? Like, what's happening? So that made me doubt what was going on even more. Come to find out, just stay patient. You'll see the vision, trust the process, and look where we are now. I mean, this is the recreation of the teams of the past. I look at this team. I try not to compare them to the teams of the past, but in terms of how this city has been able to embrace them, it's very similar. They got just a bunch of hardworking guys that buy into their head coach, guys that buy into the city and the region, and it's a beautiful thing. I'm so happy that Sean McDermott is going to be here for the next 6-7 years. Josh Allen's going to be here for the next 8 years. Brandon Beane's going to be here for the next 8 years, at least on contract. I think McDermott is going to be old and gray by the time he walks out of Buffalo and waves his hat and says goodbye to everybody. It's a beautiful thing. So shout out to Sean McDermott. I think he is actually getting lost in the shuffle of how great this team actually is, if that makes sense. Because before, he was like the microscopic, head coach under the spotlight when they didn't really have the players. But now the players are taking that spotlight, as they should, because they're playing extremely well, and the head coach kind of falls into the back of the spotlight a little bit. And he even made a joke about that. I remember during training camp last year, the year before, hey, the better we get, the less I'll have to talk to you guys about bad stuff. The players will do that for me. And here we are. Jake Jordan said wrestler equals discipline and grit. Former wrestler here too. So shout out to Jake Jordan. Jeff Davis says,
know that about Jake. Cool.
Yeah, I didn't either. That's cool. Jeff Davis says that throw he made in the Jaguars game to Foster sold me. And that was
great throw.
Wow. Was that when Robert Foster did like the windmill celebration?
Yep. Sure was.
That was
Jalen
great.
Ramsey had a meltdown.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. Chris Madison says, we have to use what the Chiefs have never seen from us, our run game. Slow down the game and control the clock. Keep the Chiefs' offense off the field. I think that's something that has kind of fallen on deaf ears, at least in terms of how game plans work in the NFL. Teams don't really work on time of possession. It's all about go, 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 where if you can establish a run game, get that TOP up in comparison to the other team, Mahomes can't do a lot from the bench. So I like that take a lot, Chris. So last and certainly not least, I got to get a score prediction from Justus General. How do you see this game shaping up and shaking out this Sunday night? And again, prime time, baby, prime time. This is the AFC Super Bowl. Damn the Titans. Damn the Bengals. If the Bengals roll through Tennessee and we beat the Chiefs, it is a home AFC championship game. Hell yeah. Are you going if that happens?
You know what? If that happens, yeah, I am going. Actually, I think Jake. Oh wait, no, it's not Jake. It's my man Ryan. But yeah, I'm 100% going. Of course, if I can afford the tickets.
Yes, I second that as well. I don't want to break the bank too much, but I am willing to break the bank more, if in fact more than usual, if in fact that does happen. So, right. What do you got for the score prediction in this one?
You know what, man? I like poetry, right? And I really do think that, life is funny in a way that it'll like really show you things and like do certain things that'll make you just like, wow, that's funny, right? So I see that happening again today. I say the Bills head to the AFC Championship game. Final score: Buffalo Bills 38, Chiefs 20.
Wow. So similar, obviously the exact same score as what it was in the regular season. I see this game being a nail-biting shootout, of course, just because these two offenses are so good. I know Buffalo's defense is far better than Kansas City's, but I think Kansas City is going to try to throw a little bit of different things at us than what they threw at us last year in the championship game, as well as this year in the regular season. I can't. It's like that performance against the Patriots was so good that I'd be, I think, selling myself short if they did it 2 weeks in a row. You know what I mean? Like, I can't go in thinking that they can do the exact same thing. I think that they'll do a slightly less version of that. So they scored 47 points against the Patriots. That's correct, right? 47. So I'm gonna go 37. I'm gonna go 37 to 28. Buffalo. I think it's gonna be.
They're gonna get 28 points.
I do, but maybe towards the end. To your point, that 38-20 game was not 38-20. Even 18 points is 2 possessions, 2-possession lead, almost a 3-possession lead. But I think the Chiefs are going to try to score quick towards the end, and they might a couple times to keep our nails, bit down to the bone.
I can see that.
But I think the Bills are going to win this one 37 to 28, I should say. So I'm really excited for this game. This is the matchup that I wanted for the AFC title game, but the bracket didn't play out that way. It is what it is. Mahomes, Allen, AFC Divisional round. I think this was meant to be, though, so that the Bills can kick the Chiefs' ass, hope that the Bengals beat the Titans, and we host an AFC championship game for the first time in 25-plus years. So with that being said, Justus, thank you so much for joining me, buddy. I really appreciate it. I'm really happy to have you on, and I look forward to chatting with you in the future. Hopefully we got more positive things to discuss in regards to the Buffalo Bills.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate you having me on. Definitely going to have you on my show again because you were phenomenal the first time. So that's a given. That's happening. Thank you to all of the Ryan Thomas supporters. You guys are amazing. And thank you to the guys who came in here and chatted with us. You guys, of course. You guys are great.
Yes, of course. I second that. Obviously, you have a ton of people tuning in and commenting. And if I didn't get to your comments, I for certain will. As the show progresses. Justice General, with that being said, thank you for joining me. I'll be signing you off here. What is your social media for those of you that are watching? I'd love for them to have your social media so they can follow you.
Absolutely. You guys can follow me on Twitter at Justice General. I have the Windshield Factor podcast that comes out Tuesdays. They didn't drop one today. Just had a busy schedule. I have Home Field Advantage that comes out Wednesdays on Built in Buffalo YouTube page. And then, of course, every Friday with my man Jake Jordan and Izzy, I have First Round By. And that is, like I said, every Friday. Ryan was actually a guest on First Round By. Was it last week? A couple weeks ago?
Last week, yep. So, it was an awesome show.
That was awesome. Absolutely.
You had like 8 guys on that show. The screen pops up and I'm like, holy crap! I'm on like a panel here. This is great. This is really cool.
You guys did really well. That was awesome.
it made me feel like really important, which is always cool.
Yeah. Actually, I think that was the episode that Jake wasn't on. So then I definitely have to have you guys come on together. I think both of you guys are brilliant, and that would be a great show, to be honest.
Yeah, I'd love that. That sounds fantastic, dude. I'm all for it. So we'll make that happen. I really appreciate you coming on. Of course, this season's been another magical ride with ups and downs and twists and turns, but I'm feeling pretty confident heading into this Chiefs game, as you are. And if we beat the Chiefs, man, this city will be rocking. Sky's the limit. Let's just say, hypothetically, that the Titans do take down the Cincinnati Bengals and they host the AFC title game. I think that stadium will be red and blue for Buffalo Bills fans. That stadium will be full of Buffalo Bills fans. Buffalonians love going down to Nashville, myself included. So maybe I'll make that trip too. Who knows? But either
That's
way,
what happened when we played them earlier in the season. Buffalo
is.
absolutely ransacked Tennessee. So
it is. And either way, you've said this, I've said this. On their best day, I think the Buffalo Bills can beat anybody. So that puts a smile on my face, knowing that they played their best football last week. Hopefully it carries over to this week. And, of course, I look forward to chatting with you soon.
Absolutely. Same to you, brother.
Take care, dude. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
So that was Justus General joining me on the Thomas Take Sports podcast. I have so much to cover in regards to this Bills game. I had so much to cover in regards to this Buffalo Bills game with Justus on the show. Talked about a lot of topics, whether it's stuff that pertains to the matchup as well as future stuff. I mean, Brian Dable getting head coaching opportunities, as well as Leslie Frazier interviewing for the Bears, for the Dolphins. I really think that could be a huge plot line in the offseason. If both of those guys go, it'll provide McDermott, I like to say, with the opportunity to kind of bring in some new blood that could make the Bills a little bit different in the 2022-2023 season. You notice I said different, not better, not worse, just be different. We'll see what that brings. But obviously I'm living in the now. We have a huge game on Sunday night against the two-time AFC champion Kansas City Chiefs. These last few years, they've won the AFC. 2 years ago, they won the Super Bowl. They have a quarterback that is praised by the media. And I've seen Josh Allen get that praise finally. It took them long enough. Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes, the matchup that I wanted, the matchup that we're getting. Of course, it's in the AFC Divisional round. Leading up to the matchup, I'll be sure to be back on the show, so stay tuned for more from the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. This Saturday night as well, UFC 270, Francis Ngannou versus Cyril Gane. The UFC heavyweight title is on the line. Could Gane potentially unify the titles as the interim champion, or will Ngannou defend and retain the heavyweight strap? I'll be providing my preview and prediction podcast video for that fight, as well as Brandon Moreno, the UFC flyweight champion, taking on Davison Figueiredo for the third time to silence and settle the score. 1 versus 1 right now. It's Moreno losing the first fight, Figueiredo winning the first fight, Moreno winning the second fight. Can he do it again? Usually the man that wins the rematch is the man that wins part 3. And the same thing could go for the Buffalo Bills. They won the rematch during the regular season. Can they win part 3? Round 3 from last year. Chiefs, Bills. I'll be sure to provide you more coverage on that game and much, much more. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I really appreciate the comments and the support. I'm Ryan Thomas. That was the Thomas Take Sports Podcast. Go Bills.